Ladies and gentlemen, the ultimate title that you can achieve in the game of chess is Grandmaster. It's the highest possible distinction, meaning that you have a full mastery of the game. I suppose you can make a technicality and say that becoming the world champion is another title, but officially recognized title is Grandmaster. And I'm not a Grandmaster. I have a long playlist on this YouTube channel of my trainings that I did when I made a comeback to tournaments. I have since retired for various reasons that I've talked about at length. And if you're even confused about how to become a Grandmaster, you can find that in another video I did some years ago. That's not the point. The point of this video is that sometimes I have really good chess days. We all have really good chess days sometimes. Other days are horrible. I like to share both the good and the bad with you. And yesterday I had a really good chess day where I performed at a 2,900 and 3,000 level on chess.com, like a strong Grandmaster would. Days like this make me want to come back to competitive chess, and maybe I will at some point in the future. And one of these games actually was against a world champion contender whose name is GothamChess, who I have played a couple of times, probably been featured a handful of times in my videos. 2846, 2880, 2860 were the levels of my opponents, as well as 2941. So we are going to look at a bunch of these games. You're going to learn a few things, and I'm going to show you a lens into my emotions, good, bad, and ugly. Some of these games were horrendous, so you'll get a chance to learn from that too. So I was playing against a Polish player, Mighty GM Pretender, who I suppose pretends that he's a Grandmaster. His name is Antonio Kozak, and he's a 2440 FIDE-rated untitled player. So his international rating is 2440. He has no title, and he played the modern defense against me with g6. I played something super goofy. The most principled way is, of course, to put 2 pawns, and maybe you could even put 3 pawns and put a knight and try to attack. I played like this, because I was actually hoping that he would turn the game into a Sicilian defense, and then that would be like an A3 Sicilian, which I do play quite a bit. This is fine, but it's not considered the best way to play. And then I definitely played it in a way that's not the best way to play, because here, instead of developing a knight and castling and doing all of this, I waited for him to castle. This is actually a way that, if you go try this in your own games, if you develop your pieces in a way where you wait for your opponent to castle and then throw your flank pawn forward, it's actually pretty lethal. And so here I played h4. And the idea is just to play h5. And, you know, there's other ideas like going here first, taking the knight so it leaves control of that square. And people are really bad at defending themselves against these attacks, which is why I always tell people, play h5, okay? Play h5, all right? My opponent did not play h5 and instead tried to target my bishop, so I kind of left the pawn there, but then I played h5 myself. And you might be wondering, but what about the knight and the pawn? Yeah, what about the knight and the pawn? Well, the idea is I'm going to sack my rook. I'm just straight up going to sack my rook. Now, normally, this is a very bad deal. But actually here, you can see the computer says it's in the balance. It's because I have this bishop. My queen is lurking around the position. I'm down 2 points, and yet the position is in the balance. And that's because I'm going to get some very quick development on this side, attacking possibilities. When I castle long, my rook will come join my queen on the h-file. So what does my opponent want? He wants to trade queens. If the queens come off the board right now, white is dead lost. So he goes here. Now I'm monitoring the queen trade. I quickly develop my knight to gain a little bit more control. He goes here. Now, like I said, if I take, the advantage is massive now. I mean, it's not completely lost, but it's a very, very, very bad decision to do that. So I get out of the way. I don't trade the queens. I want to go here, here, bring my rook, and then I want to bring in my knights. I want to start plugging my knights into the attack because I have a very clear plan of action, right? So he goes here. In this position, I thought it was a very bad idea to trade because I figured when I did, he would take, secure center control, and activate his rook by capturing with the pawn. Every time a pawn moves in chess, you got to think about what else is being affected. Now, that would have been a very bad decision by me, but a good decision actually is this crazy knight e2 move, rerouting the knight immediately, not worried about moving the rook. I thought that was a little bit demented, but apparently that is not the worst idea in the world. I didn't do that. I decided to just quickly castle and just say, you know what? If you take me, I'm going to move my knight out of the center like that. But I'm going to be okay. Now, what's really crazy here is that I did not need to take at all. I have a Zwischenzug, an in-between move in this position, which is including the move knight h4, threatening the queen. And the point is, if the queen tries to defend the bishop, now I go knight f5. And apparently, I'm winning. Like, I don't understand, but apparently I'm winning. If he moves the rook, I can go here, here, and queen g3, and it's mate. Like, it's insane, but mate comes out of nowhere. Yeah, I didn't see any of that. I did this, and then I played knight h4 anyway, and we just kept building the pressure. He pushed my bishop back, but again, these pieces are going to come back into the game because I'm going to play g3. I'm going to play rook h1. I'm going to use pawn breaks to get rid of the blockade and reactivate my pieces. So that's what I did. I put my knight on f5. He went here. I played queen h5, which I thought was a nice idea. If knight takes f2, he gets my pawn, but his knight just dies. So he gets a pawn. Like a lot of people here, especially the beginners, would say, I take a pawn and I attack a rook? That's so good. No, it's not, because he just moves the rook. You got to think, like, what is your opponent going to want to do? Then I went g4, we traded, and I, again, avoided a queen trade, and I was ready to bring my rook. Now, at this point, I realized this is a tough position. This blockade is really powerful. And if we go to an endgame, the rook versus the two rooks is really going to be felt, because I have a knight, but it can't really get into the game. So I'm gonna need to rely on pawn breaks. I'm going to need to break the center apart. So I targeted the queen. I don't have a rook pin to the queen, so I did this. I'm looking at knight f4. I'm looking at routing my knight that way. I'm looking at d4. I got to break apart the center quickly, okay? So I played d4. All right, we're both down to about 30 seconds. I'm trying to pry the defenses apart. Rook g8. I take, and now black's position is a little bit more fragile, so I play queen h5. I'm not threatening mate, but I'm immobilizing the queen. I'm making it very difficult for him to offer me a queen trade, right? Or target my position. He goes here, I go here. Now I'm threatening something really lethal. I've got pressure, and actually I am threatening knight takes f4 in some positions. The point is he can't take, because I would deflect the queen away from the defensive mate. So that is my major idea. I also have to be very careful, because there are checkmating ideas on g1. Take is mate, but I can block. I don't actually have to take the queen when it arrives. Queen g1 is crazy. So what I do in this position, after rook d7, is I played b3, and I made sure that my king was always going to have an escape route. He played queen g4. And so now I played a move that I thought was really good, which was queen h6. He had to defend himself and stubbornly play like this, but he blunders. He blunders under the pressure. The best move here was to take and actually play f3, removing the defense of the pawn. But I was not in really a queen trade mindset. I thought there's no reason I should trade the queens. But I have a tactical justification, which is that I got this. He can't take. And then I'm, all right. I have a knight and a pawn for the rook, which is very decent. And I have ideas like knight e6. And the position could get very bad very quickly. So the best thing to do is actually to make a draw, to just repeat moves. Because my bishop has to, there's this, but then there's rook d8. So there's actually rook c7, sacking the rook and then winning the knight. That's crazy. But my opponent played this. Bishop g7, and he hung mate and won. But I was happy with this game because it was a very interesting way to play. And I actually suggest this for your own games. If there's positions where you can wait for your opponent to castle, use that h-pawn attack, especially against the fianchettoed bishop, and then don't trade the queens, bring the queen back and slowly build up some attack. It is very, very, very tough to defend, as you can see from this game. Now, this game was the opposite. This game was not a goofy opening. It was actually just an opening success. I played against... I always find this person's username hilarious because Stolen has one L. So technically, this person's username is pronounced Stalin Monster. But I think it's Stolen Monster. So E4, this is a 2900 rated player from Russia, I believe. And I played a Ponziani, which is crazy. Like, Ponziani at 2900 level, not supposed to work. Opponents are all supposed to know theory. Very, very highly recommended opening. I have an opening called Best Beginner Chess Opening. Ponziani very well could be. He went here. I played the main line, Queen A4, pinning the knight to the king. And now black either has to defend the center or know this tricky line where they give up the pawn completely. It's a free pawn, but they attack my queen with the bishop. They take, and then they play things like knight f6, bishop d6, and black is fine according to the computer. But after you develop like d3, castle, white is just a pawn up. Like, the computer thinks it's equal for black if you play aggressively and play f5, but my opponent went here, and I know that's not the right move, because what that move does do, despite getting the active bishop, is it doesn't secure the center, and actually the bishop is a target for me, because I'm up a pawn, so I'm happy to trade pieces. The reason why the bishop needs to go to d6, black wants to avoid exchanges. Black wants to activate pieces, but not trade. So what do? I play all the ideas of the opening, I try to trade the bishops, I finish my development, he castles, and then I castle, and the opening is over, and I am still up a pawn, right? So now I'm like, oh man, I'm up a pawn against this 2,900 rated player. So my opening was a success. In chess, you have checkpoints in the game. You go, did I forget the opening? Did I play the opening correctly? Yeah, I played the Ponziani exactly how it's supposed to be played. Now my opponent goes c6, and now it's a matter of simplification. So what I have to do is simplify in the correct way. If I take and activate his bishop for him, that's the wrong way. If I keep the tension and play a move like knight e4, which is the best move, now I'm threatening this, eyes on that, and I'm going to trade a few pieces. If he takes me, which he did, I'm going to undouble my pawns. So my d pawns now become d and e, and I'm just a clean pawn up. It's not even a doubled pawn. The whole argument previously is that I have a doubled pawn. It's not doubled anymore. He plays king h8, and now it's like, well, now I have to just not rush. He plays king h8 to get off of this diagonal. This is a very instructive move. Sometimes when you saw last game, right? I was down material, so I had to attack. But sometimes you're down like a pawn, and sometimes you're down a pawn in a position like this, which is very sterile. There's not a whole lot going on. So he gets the king out of the line of sight of my bishop, and now with my queen there, he's going to create counterplay with f5. So I still have to be careful, because I can definitely still blunder here, and I started getting a little bit nervous. You'll notice I have a time advantage. Watch what happens to my time. I got so nervous in this game. Pawn takes f5. You may be wondering, why did I take and allow the rook to take? Just because they can attack you doesn't mean they're going to win you. You can centralize. Everything is safe. Just ask yourself, can they take anything? No. Bishop d3 is coming with pressure and mate ideas. This is a very bad position for black. So he took with the bishop. I slid the queen off the line of sight of the rook. He went here, which is a good move. I should have traded faster. I should have taken on c5 faster. I traded, and then I just brought my second rook. Look at the time. Look at the time. I went from 138. I spent 30 seconds on that move. That's crazy. That's my nerves. That's my nerves kicking in, right? He takes. I spent another 11 seconds on that move. Then I quickly took, which was easy. Then I spent 25 seconds moving my rook. Now I'm down to 33 seconds. So I am actively sabotaging myself because I'm so nervous. I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna get my queen. He's got this, and then he's gonna mate me. I'm seeing ghosts. That's what's happening. I'm seeing ghosts, right? But I'm also looking at things like, wait a minute, the rook hits the bishop and the pawn, right? And what if I play bishop a7 and then queen a7, rook d6? And then I was like, wait a minute, then there's queen c5, you cannot end your calculation on your move, right? So, instructive moment in the game. If bishop takes, queen takes, rook takes. Does that mean that I play that? No, because you got to think, can my opponent do anything to me? Queen c5 is a fork. So I'm like, okay, rook e1. He goes rook f6. I'm terrified at this, but I play queen h4. I'm down to 30 seconds. Queen c7. I spend another 10 seconds. I'm down to 21 seconds on the clock. I get a little bonus time every time I make a move, but I'm trying to trade. He declines to trade, but now his bishop is stuck, and I'm going to just very slowly unwind here, okay? Rook g6. I get a little closer with my queen. Now I make sure that there is no discovered attack. I have 15 seconds on the clock, but I'm lucky because despite all of this, he has no threats. Bishop f4, I go bishop c5 attacking his rook. I go here, and then I force a bishop trade, and now I'm completely winning. Like, it's no longer a question. Not only am I a pawn up, he has a ruined structure, so it's going to be just a matter of time until all my pawns swarm. My pieces swarm the pawn, rather. Rook f8, I take. Take, rook e4, 2 pawns up. 2 pawns up, dominant position, but 6 seconds on the clock. The way you win this with white is you quickly simplify. You get a rook off the board, you make sure you don't get mated. He went here, he's trying to snipe my pawn. I brought my pieces back, I defended all my pawns. He goes queen b5, I play queen e4 check. Queen e4 check is like an impulse move, because you're like, I gotta give a check. And then I went here, so now I have no pawn weaknesses. All my pawns are defended, but he goes here. I'm nervous, I'm gonna lose my rook. So now I play backwards. Why did I play back? It's just a free pawn. This is a third free pawn, completely free. Everything is defended, but I went back. Rook f5. Now I needed to defend my f pawn, so I played f3. I got 4 seconds on the clock. He goes here. I centralize. And now here, I'm like, okay, I can go back, but that's a free pawn. And I blunder. Rook takes f3. And the game is going to be a draw. I can't take the rook because he actually gets a perpetual check. And I blundered a draw. I blundered a draw with 2 seconds on the clock. I got nervous. I threw the game. This is like vintage Gotham. But my opponent was feeling generous. My opponent got arrogant here. And instead of taking the draw for reasons I cannot explain, he took my pawn. He was trying to play on my clock. He thought I was so nervous. Maybe he's seen my content where I openly talk about having serious doubts and mental gymnastics and everything, and I had to play like this. Now, it is still a dead draw. It's still a dead draw. It might be winnable, but he didn't want to draw. He did not want to draw, and as it started to happen, I started picking up his pawns, and I've just got more of them. So by the time he takes my pawns, he's going to lose all of his, and with just 3 seconds on the clock, I managed to protect my king, centralize my queen, and now I'm winning. Completely winning. Now I have 2 passers, and my king is going to run that way, and that's exactly what I did. I mean, but look at my queen defending everything. He gives me checks. I run my king over here, and a very easy way to end this game, queen c4 check. Force the queen trade. Of course, I can just advance, but queen c4 check hits the king and the queen. I'm going to get my 2 passed pawns. I'm going to go join them. He's going to go defend. I'm going to go win that pawn, promote my h pawn, and that is going to be the end of the game. Of course, I can also just push my c pawns. This was the exact type of game that I always mess up. I just panic, I get low on time, and I allow like a trick, and I throw the game. And it's just crazy because it was such a dominant game from start to finish. And that's what I did. Now this game I was very proud of. I thought this was a very, very nice game. This was against Kirill Klukin, who I've actually never defeated before. I checked our games. I was like 0-4 against him. Some of those games were a while ago, but he played the bird. And then I just played b6, bishop b7. I played kind of my famous e6, b6 system. This game got really weird really quickly because we both fought for the center, but there's actually a major flaw with what he's doing. And this might be very deceiving to some of you, but you know, the whole point of playing the bird, right, which is what he's playing, is to secure the e5 square. Secure the dark squares in the center, quickly develop, and then use that f-file. Use the f-pawn to your advantage to try to create an attack. When you start playing and trying to be greedy in the center, like this, when you push too many pawns forward, pawns in the back get weak. Not just pawns, complexes, right? So here, the very simple pawn takes d4 made me realize, oh, he's in a lot of trouble already because he created too many openings for my pieces. He did not develop his pieces fast enough, even though he's 2860. Like sometimes that's what happens. And now, rather than give the check first, I play knight e4. And it's like when you hit a ship in Battleship, you can choose which side you're going to go to next. Knight e4 sets up irresistible danger to the position. He plays knight c3 because he kind of has to. Like if he plays this, bishop b4, he can't block the check. He has to move his king up, which is miserable. So what he does is he plays this, and now queen h4 is okay, but believe it or not, despite that, like he could get a position where he loses his rook, and he's actually not that much worse. And I realized this because I was like, it's kind of nuts that I can play queen h4, and he can like give me this, and then just like take, and he's not even losing because he can quickly create counterplay against me. And I noticed that, and I focused on that side of the board. My idea was just to quickly castle. But then he undeveloped his knight. And then I was like, you know what? Knight c6, and here's my idea. He's gonna play a3, I'm gonna make him take, and then I'm gonna shove my pawn into his position. a3, I took. Remember, he's lost a bunch of time. His knight went here, here, there, there. He also has weaknesses. He has a weak king. He's not castling anytime soon. And now it's a matter of, do I try to strike at his center with the move d4, or do I target his knight with queen f6? And that's what I did. And I'm gonna get my rook quickly on the same file, or I'm gonna castle. I'm gonna get my king out of the center, and now it's just, how do you attack an opponent who has kind of violated opening principles, right? Who has not gotten his development, and now, this is a very important move. Instead of castling, I'm more equipped to start a fight, so I play d4. And now I'm going to pry apart his position piece by piece. He goes here, which is a nice move. I play queen e7, guarding against knight d6, and also threatening the pawn here, where the rook had to move to defend the knight. So his whole position is falling apart. Now he goes here and here, and he tries to advance it into my position. I take once, I dart out of the way, but he still puts the knight on d6. And now we continue to try to wreck his position with the move e5. And he's just a move behind. He's a move behind. I have too many threats against his very, very weak king. He decides to get desperate here. He goes here, gives up a pawn, tries to close the position, but he's a pawn down and the position's bad. So I give a check. Now I give the check because his king loses the right to castle. Now he's a pawn down with a bad position and he has no right to castle. So now it's just a matter of, I got to get rid of these guys. I got to get rid of these pieces. I make sure he doesn't take my bishop. I don't trade queens. I could have traded queens, but my queen is more active and powerful than his. Queen f6, centralize the knight, creating a lot of pressure on his position. f3, hitting this. Now it's just a matter of, how do I get rid of this blockade? I shove my pawn forward, right? We both have like 3 seconds on the clock here. Play bishop c6. That's mostly just not to lose on time, but it's actually the top computer move, which is nice. Rook d1, and now I sacked. An impulse move. Not the best move, not necessary. I could just play rook b8. But I decided to sack because I get this and this. My pawn is so strong. Maybe I'll take this in the future. It gave him some chances, but I had a really powerful blockade. And I've also got knight g4 on the way. So like his king can't escape. And this pawn is an anchor of my position. So it's going to put pressure. He tried to sack a rook back, but he just doesn't have enough. I'm up too many pawns. And now it's just about cleaning house. Queen c3, a5. We trade. I'm up 4 pawns now. And we win this game by opening up his king. And the king gets opened up, rook e2, we swarm in, and that pawn ultimately did thoroughly restrict his position. I was very happy with this game because as early as move 7, I was actually able to spot the fact that he created too many weaknesses, and it allowed me to transform the position in an advantageous way, like punishing him for this kind of weakening of his position early on. So this was very instructive, I thought, of how I handled his lack of development, sacrificing my own castling desire to play d4. And then later in the day, I played a very creative game. I was very, very happy with this game. My estimated elo in this game was 3,200. This is against GothamChess. If you look up GothamChess, dude's got a ridiculous resume. He played a Sicilian Defense against me, and I played this line that I've been playing recently. I even made a pretty advanced course on this, like a chessable course on this. So if you're like 1,1700 over the board, which is probably about 2,000 online, 2,100 online, you can study this course. It's a very interesting course, but the lines that are very high level. Take, and the idea is white puts the queen back, allows this tempo winning move, but this is a major sideline with some very interesting chess that can arise because you get some very creative positions, you castle. And Gata played this in a way where he puts the knight on g6. He tries to fight for the center with the knight. He loses a little bit of time, but then he played h5, and I played h4. We met on the h-file, which I thought benefited me. He took a lot of risk in the beginning, b5, and then here I got a little wild. I was feeling very confident. I had a lot of momentum. I could have probably just played like knight f3, gotten a bit more development, maybe f4, f5, but here I took a massive risk, and I played knight d5. And that's a very common Sicilian sacrifice, where if your opponent's king is in the center, just like the last game, just like the game against Kirill, you can play moves like this that open up the position. And the idea is very simple. I want to play knight c7, and you can't stop it. You actually have to take my knight, probably. And now I have the open e-file. So I thought knight b4 was the best move, but then I'm still threatening rook e1 and d6. You actually can't stop both. You can play bishop c5. I will give you a check. You have to move king f8, and then your knight is still trapped. So I'm winning the knight back no matter what. So Gata spent a little time, put the knight on e5. I didn't take. I played rook e1 first, and now I'm guaranteed to win back the material because the king is in the center. To my surprise, Gata just gave me material. I thought maybe he would want to keep the pawn, but he said no. Take the knight, and then take the pawn too. Take. So now I'm up a pawn. I'm actually just a clean pawn up. And I thought there's no way he can castle because I play rook h5. Actually, apparently he can, but you know, I thought he's going to play like something here, get his bishop out, but I thought I had a really nice position. He plays queen d6. I develop, I could have developed my knight to defend my rook, but instead I went here, and I was actually already setting up some very nasty ideas. The point of queen e3 is to prevent castling. So now his bishop will be under attack if he castles. The other idea was that if he plays king f8, he can't move his bishop because I have rook e8 mate. So I thought this was a very flexible choice by me, queen e3. Now I develop my knight. Now he plays bishop g4. He wants to take my knight. And so I thought, okay, I can develop my bishop here. And I don't really see any other move, right? Because I need to get my rook in the game. I need to play bishop d3. I need to play rook f1. So that's what I did. I played bishop d3. And notice, different from the other games, my time. Managing my time very well. And here I made a slight mistake. Bishop f6. And not a slight mistake, but I actually, like, it seems like a mistake, but I had an idea, and I'm super proud of this idea, and it's the top recommended idea of Stockfish. My position is so good, and my king is so much safer. The f-file is a minefield for the black king. Also, black's lack of castling is preventing the rook from getting into the game quickly. So I had an idea here. If Gata plays bishop f6, I'm not backing up. In fact, if he wants to create danger to my rook, I am going forward. Now I threaten rook e8 check, winning the queen. If he takes, I go here. Now I threaten mate. If he goes here, then I win the game with bishop e4 or knight g6. So he can't do that. So then I don't know what he's going to do. Okay? I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know how he's going to try to defend himself with rook f1 coming, right? That's my idea. Now here you went here. So now rook e8 doesn't work because the queen is protected, and he's really trying to take, and he's trying to get his rook in the game. If he can get that rook in the game, it's a devastating position for me. But here I found rook e1. Rook e1 recreates the threat of rook e8. Because now I have backup, so he can't take me with the king. Rook e8, I would take, and then I would take the queen. Or I would take the queen first. So now he has to take me. He has to take. Take. And he is under a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure. Now, what's crazy about this position is, let's just say it was something like a5, king b1. Like, I know I'm just saying, if this is the position, white is winning. But my king's position, because I never spent a move on king b1, Gata has a defensive move here. In fact, it's the only move. Otherwise, I have an overwhelming attack. Otherwise, black has to go here. I play queen d4. I play rook f1. My position beautifully coordinates to swarm him where material doesn't matter because his king is so weak. It doesn't matter that he's up a little bit of material. But Gata here finds the critical idea, queen h6. And he's threatening a queen trade, so I cannot mate him. But what I can do is utilize the pin while I'm pinned. Knight g6 check. His king cannot go to the file. I actually cannot take the queen because then the rook gets out of the way. I can't take the knight. I can't take the rook with the knight because he takes my queen. But what I do have is perpetual. So we repeat moves, and that's as good as I can do. All right, as good as I can do. And, you know, queen h6 was the only defensive move. He had to force a draw. Otherwise, white would have had a very powerful attack. Maybe I would have messed it up later. Maybe not, but he plays queen h6 because it's really the only move in the position. I was very happy with this game. I was very happy with this knight sacrifice idea and the pin and winning my knight back and then keeping my rook in the center. All right, a worthy sacrifice. Queen f4, I thought this was super clever. And it turned out that Stockfish blessed this whole attack. And it came down to one square. If my king was on b1, queen h6 obviously doesn't work, but that's life. And, you know, it's the second time I've drawn Gata. And I was very proud of this game. So I didn't win all my games. I lost a few games as well. But overall, pretty happy with my performance. Good title Tuesday. I got 8 out of 11. And then in the evening, I got 7 out of 11. Wasn't perfect, but it is what it is, and days like this make me, think that the GM title is not completely over, not completely lost. So that's all I have for you today. I'll see you in the next video. Get out of here.